Yeah, so we're just going to share a little bit about our experience leading and running and being involved in the Release Team Shadow program. We're going to talk about what it is, how it works, and why we do it. First off, who we are. My name is Guinevere Saenger. I'm a software engineer at GitHub. I became involved with the Kubernetes project about 2 years ago, and I like being silly at work, on the internet, and on stage.
And my name is Lachlan Evenson. I'm going to be trying to live draw things, so honk, pre-prepared honk. For those of you who don't know, go to honk, what is it, honk.ci? Honk.ci and check it out for yourself. My name's Lachlan Evenson. I work at Microsoft Azure, and during my time in the Kubernetes community, I've served as the 1.16 release lead, so you can either thank me or give me some nice feedback afterwards for that. A CNCF ambassador, and I'm a recent US citizen. I think I pre-drew that one too, but let's just get the breadsticks out of the way for everyone, and I'm an American and Australian, so. Well, we're going to have a fun time. I do, but there's not 13 stripes, so don't look too close. I could have it revoked.
He's still practicing.
But yeah, so we've both been in the release lead position, so we're sharing our experience, and we're very excited to see how we can make mentoring programs attractable to the wider audience. So we're going to share our successes in that, and what's been good and what's been bad, and how you can help.
Hi, everyone. I am the Kubernetes Release Team lead. I have so much work to do. My weekends are being eaten. My boss is mad at me because I'm falling behind at work. There is so much to do, and I don't even know what I'm going to do next. It turns out being in charge of a Kubernetes release is a lot of work. You have to, I have to manage all the features. I have to make sure that all the bugs get found and fixed before the date. I have to manage the community. I have to talk to all the community groups. Hey, which changes do you want to put into your release? Please keep us updated. Please keep us posted. There is a schedule. I have to schedule meetings. Using scheduling software is actually really hard. I didn't know that. I need to make sure everything has a priority. I need to make sure everything is somehow juggled. People make the meetings. People don't lose track, and we don't break security. And
So it turns out you have a lot to do. I think I might be able to help you with that. I'm new here. My name's Lockie. I have a lot of time and a lot of energy. Is there any way that you can help me contribute to Kubernetes? Because it's a big project. It's super hard to get into. And I do not want to be turned away because I want to use all my free weekends to help.
Really?
Yes.
It's just, it turns out, oh my gosh, so you're feeling overwhelmed, you don't know where to start, and it's just also, you also feel overwhelmed?
Yeah, I feel the same as you. We might actually have the same problem here.
Oh my gosh, I just had the best idea. How about you help me do my job on the release team?
No. You won't let me do that, will you?
No.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Sounds like the best of both worlds.
So, it turns out that we have a process for this. It's called the Release Team Shadow Program. And basically, what I'll ask you is, I'm going to be a shadow on the release team. You look confused.
Yes, what's a shadow do?
Oh, okay. Very cool. So, basically, it's really to help the release team do a better job.
Okay.
For example, if I'm on the release team and I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm sick, or I can't make a deadline, then a shadow can help me do my job and just kind of step in for me.
I think I can help with that. So what do you, it sounds like it's great to have a fallback for emergencies.
That's really awesome. Also, it turns out 4 eyes, 2 eyes, 4 eyes.
2 eyes will work.
More eyes are better than just one person's eyes. So you can help me catch errors if I forgot something, or when I have a whole boatload of work to do, and I need to do it today, but I also have a whole boatload of work for my day job, then
So what you're saying is shadows actually do real things on the release team?
Shadows do real work.
Okay, okay. So I also like the idea of this chain, passing the torch in the chain of command. So having more people accountable to the process is probably, is that a good thing?
So it turns out the release team forms for 3 months. That's how long a release is. And then it disbands, and a new release team gets formed.
Okay.
We need people that have the qualifications to be on the next release team.
Okay. Sounds like something I might be interested in.
So let's see. The release team is comprised of several roles. There's the overall lead, and then there are the theme leads, the other leads, and this is a list of them. There are 6 roles that we look for shadows for, and each of the roles on the release team do slightly different things. One of the roles is in charge of Kubernetes enhancements. That is the person that shepherds all the new features and all the cleanup issues and all the new changes that go into the release. But we also need to have people that make sure that our tests pass. So that's what CI Signal does. Bug triage makes sure that we don't accidentally introduce any horrible things that break everyone's stuff. We need docs for all this. We need to let people know what changed from release to release. And we also need to let people know that, hey, there's a new Kubernetes release out there. So all these roles have slightly different things to do. And depending on who you are, what you know, and what you want to learn, you might be interested in one or the other. We don't ask that you know everything for that role, but you must be interested in it.
So I'm a PM, and I'm really good at spreadsheets. Very good at Excel. It's my most endorsed thing on LinkedIn. So maybe I would make a good enhancements person. What is it like to shadow that role?
I just found someone who admitted they're good at spreadsheets.
And likes it too.
That's so cool. All right.
Come see me about your spreadsheet needs.
So, yeah, so again, the most important thing, if you're shadowing a role in the release team, is to read the Role Handbook.
That's it?
And attend the meetings.
Attend the meetings? Okay, I can do that.
Yeah. So that doesn't sound like too bad, does it?
No, no.
So the next thing that will happen is that the enhancements lead for this release is going to talk to you and say, hi, Lucky, it's so nice to meet you. Thank you for helping me out. And then they will start assigning you tasks. Moreover, if you get confused, who are you going to ask?
Ghostbusters? Oh, I thought you said who you're going to call. No. The lead, the enhancements lead for help. Fantastic, fantastic.
Exactly, yeah.
So yeah, I think this is all up my alley. It sounds great, but how do I actually become a shadow?
I'm so glad you asked. We have an application form. It usually goes up in the first few weeks of the release. And you're going to fill out a Google form. And a couple things we want to know about you. For example, what's your experience level? What are you interested in learning? Are you a Kubernetes org member? Are you involved in a Kubernetes SIG? Where do you live?
Why do you need to know where I live?
That was not a joke. Actually, it turns out that if we have representation on the release team across multiple time zones in the world, that is a really, really good thing. Kubernetes is a huge project. We have maintainers everywhere. It turns out it's really useful to have people that are awake when you're asleep.
Okay, so what you're telling me is I need to move back to Australia. Shout out to Paul there, who's on the release team from Australia.
I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Okay, but seriously, I bet a lot of people are interested in the process. How do they go about selecting from the applicants?
So the main goal is we want to fill all the roles on the team, and we want to backfill the roles in the form of shadows. Usually, we go for a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 4 shadows per role.
Okay.
It turns out that for this release, we do have a place on the enhancements team for you. Congratulations.
Fantastic. I'm
Welcome
now a
to the
Kubernetes
team.
member. Thank you. I got lucky. Thank you.
The other thing we're looking for in the release team is, I already touched on this with time zone representation. We look to have the release team represent who we are as a community. We want to make sure that we have many different voices, many different experience levels, and many different kinds of people fulfilling the different roles. Because we have handbooks and we have a process and we help each other out, we can make sure that the process stands on its own and you can fill the role in the form of who you are and what you bring to the team.
So it's not just people that code that can contribute to this process.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can actually see that in the history of release leads. I'm a developer, but previous release leads have been project managers and docs people and community managers. And it really just depends on your interests and what you bring to the team. You do not have to be a specific kind of person.
And why do you think there's so much interest in this process?
So this process is actually working really, really well. I think there's a few key things that make it work for us. So number one, we have a really low barrier to entry. If you become a shadow on the release team, you almost immediately become a Kubernetes org member. We can't have you not be a member and running around organizing enhancements and bugs. We also have a handbook. When you are on the release team as a shadow, your lead will be your mentor. For 3 months, you will have a mentor. You can ask all the questions. While you're doing release team work, you will meet everyone in the community. You will know who people are, and they'll recognize your name. It is a very paved path forward.
I feel super safe with this process, having a mentor that's here to help me and on board and help show me the ropes. So I think it's a great idea.
And the whole process is time-boxed. After 3 months, we're done. That's the end of the release cycle. It'll be enough time to learn the role. It won't overburden anyone from a mentor-mentee perspective.
And I've noticed in my observations that the release team is always super friendly.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's more fun that way.
Yeah, totally. We're there to have fun. We're people.
It's a really low-stress introduction to the community, and also each release team tends to have some fun with, silly things like release themes or, potential geese. I don't know.
So do you find that people who come in as shadows, do they go on to a larger role or contributorship?
Yeah, it's a lot of people who have been on the release team now have just a little bit more confidence in meeting people and asking and seeing where people need help. So it helps people become contributors.
Okay, fantastic.
So this kind of brings us back away from the release team into a healthy community. Serving on the release team will grant you membership in the Kubernetes org right away. Congratulations.
Woo-hoo! People love getting that Kubernetes badge.
That's not all. Having the shadow program obviously allows us to grow a community. We can continuously pass along the torch and the responsibilities and improve upon our processes. Every shadow has new questions and says, but the handbook doesn't say that. And because we're an open source, what do we tell the shadows?
Go ask the lead.
And go improve the docs.
Go improve the docs.
Yeah.
You're only one Git commit away from perfection.
So as a shadow, you can learn about the community and be part of it at the same time.
Absolutely, absolutely. I really appreciate the fact that I can contribute as a shadow and help take some time and pressure, and that's really meaningful in the community to folks like yourself who are under immense pressure, and we want to make sure that we preserve, you in the community, not burn you out.
Yeah, it really prevents team leads from being overworked or developing a hero culture where everyone's too busy all the time. And also... Well...
Now that I've shadowed enhancements for a cycle, what happened?
Well, now that you know what to do, you can perform that role as lead. Welcome to Kubernetes 118.
Thank you very much. So I have the opportunity to now lead the role myself. You're giving me the keys?
Yes!
Oh, thank you very much. And now I have to go and train shadows?
I mean, you are allowed to, and it is an honor.
Oh, yes. It's obviously my honor to serve. Oh, dear. 118, we're in trouble.
So this program has been so successful that the numbers speak for themselves. For the current release that I'm leading, 117, we had 76 applicants to be a shadow on the release team. We can only fill 18 to 24 shadow spots. So it's been a huge success. People are asking to be on the team, and there's many more people that ask to be on it than we can have. And it didn't used to be that way. A year or so ago, basically, if you showed up, hey, I guess I can be on the release team, people were like, yes, please, thank you. But because of this program, now it's the opposite. People want to be part of this process.
So I've noticed that a lot more people recognize me in the hallway track being at KubeCon now. Why is that?
Well, it turns out being on the release team gives you a little bit of notoriety. And people are grateful for the work you do. You do important work, right? It's a Kubernetes release. And sometimes it's nice to be famous.
Well, I guess that's a good problem to have.
Yeah. So basically, because of this really strong response, we believe that the Release Team Shadow program shows that with a solid process and clearly defined training, handbooks, and mentorship, we can staff releases with enthusiastic, qualified, and excited folks for many releases to come. We can pass the torch and share the burden. What does this mean for the community at large? I am hoping that as a SIG chair, as a member of other SIGs, that as a leader of any kind of community group, you can start using some of the things that work for us to think about how to make it work for you. We tend to think that mentorship is for the benefit of mentees. That's not true. It's for you. It's for your community. It is for your mental health. It is for the growth of everybody. But really, if you're not going to do it for the community, do it for yourself. It really helps you be more relaxed, be happier, and provide a better product. So, community leaders, please take your cue. Welcome to life as a human.
Yeah, totally.
Over to you. You're here at this talk. Lucky
Yeah,
to talk a little
absolutely. Yeah,
bit about.
no, totally. So we need you to apply. We need this process. We need people to show up and actually help. The shadow applicants go up to SIG release for the first week or so in the beginning. So the next release starts around January, and we need folks to come in and help participate. So keep an eye out for those application processes so that you can state your interest and be part of the selection process. So we really want to have this process not even only adopted in the release team itself as part of the 3-month cycle, but we think that there's something fundamentally different about the way that we're mentoring in the release team right now that the whole community could stand to benefit from. And this speaks to just nascent, how do we go to SIGs where we have a small number of chairs and a large amount of responsibility? You know, SIG Node is probably a good example of that, where you have 2 chairs and quite a lot of, all the PRs need to go through them.
Right.
So having mentoring processes that are modeled on the release team I think would be extremely beneficial. So for you and everybody hearing how the release team operates and their shadow and mentoring program works, I really want to encourage you all to take it back to your areas, even if it's not in Kubernetes, and start using this process on your own software development for these open source projects. I think it's extremely important that we kind of get that message out, because being a former lead myself, having Gwyn helping me when I say, hey, you know, one of the kids is sick, can you take the meeting, is extremely beneficial for me and my well-being, obviously.
And your kids.
And the kids, yeah. The kid doesn't say, well, can you be sick after the Kubernetes release goes out? I'd really appreciate that if you could hold off until being sick.
So yeah, in that sense, if you're not selected to be on the release team, although I encourage everyone to apply, there are other things that you can do.
Yeah, and I think there are other roles that weren't even there, and you don't have to have a stated role to contribute to the release team as well. There's a wealth of information and process that we all need to partake in to make sure that a release goes out. If you've never partaken in this, it's a really good opportunity to see the soup to nuts, how we put together a Kubernetes release in a very short span of time, meet a lot of people from the community, because you're also communicating with them when saying, hey, can you go talk to this member and ask them these questions? It's incredibly beneficial to you as a contributor to get founded in our meeting and contributing to Kubernetes, and we want to grow you up and have a great experience.
Yeah, and SIG Release is not the only SIG with onboarding programs like this. I hear SIG Docs has a very nice onboarding track as well. If you are not on the release team, there is Release Engineering that also mentors and onboards people just like this. So we encourage you to look for those, get involved, and become members of the community.
And with that, we'll turn it over to questions. Anything about the release lead, implementing mentors, we're happy to take any questions. Yes, I'll run the mic down. Be the mic runner, sorry.
It's currently on, so.
It's one of these ones that you have to.
There's a button at the bottom.
It's this one? There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to know about what is this communications handbook? I mean, we have a different tasks in a released shadow program, right? What is this for communications? I mean, so what duty we need to perform in communication release shadow program?
Where you find the handbook? Is the question about where?
No, not that.
No, the
book,
communications role specifically. What is the comms communications role?
Yeah. So what are the duties we need to perform if we are interested in communications release shadow program?
All right. So if you're maybe you can take some of.
Yeah, I can certainly answer it. So the comms lead is responsible for directing all the media outlets when a release goes out, organizing the blogs, going to all the SIGs and asking them what features or enhancements they're working on in that they need to highlight. So gather all the blog content, work with all the media outlets to say, hey, the new release is out and here's what it does. And then they have to control the release day media. So there's a lot of just gathering. In the early stages is what are the SIGs working on, and in the later stages is making sure that the blogs show up and that we do a blog timeline. So that's specifically the comms role. And if you have any experience of that, even if you don't, we'd invite you to, the comms role is usually fairly understaffed or has a low level of applicants because people think that they're not qualified to do the comms. But really a lot of it's around, hey, what are you working on? Can you tell us what you're working on? Would you write a blog? And then making sure that that goes out on the Kubernetes blog. So you'd be in control of pressing the Launch Kubernetes blog button.
All right. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Thanks. Questions? I saw you too.
So the question is, what's the normal time commitment for like a volunteer that wants to help?
We do 4 releases a year. That means it's a roughly 3-month time commitment. There's the warm-up phase, and then there's also a retrospective. If you've shadowed a role for 3 months, and you're interested in serving as lead for the next release, then it's an additional 3 months of commitment.
2 hours per week?
Oh, I see. You're asking per week.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question is how much time per week? It depends on the role. If you're leading the release as overall lead, it tends to be on the scale of 4 hours a week in the beginning, and it gradually ramps up to about 6 to 10 at the end, sometimes more. As a shadow, it depends. You can ask, hey, I would like to shadow, but I just started a new job, so maybe I can't be available at all the time. So that's something for you to discuss with your lead. Generally, you'd expect to take the partial amount of time.
Yeah, I served as enhancement shadow in the early days, and I would say it depends. Some roles are really heavy at the start of the release in time commitment, and others are later in the release in time commitment. Enhancements, you're pretty busy early in the release, trying to gather people to have all their keps in the right state who are responsible. And then you have Bob's here. Bob's the enhancement lead for 1.17. So, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob. Then there'll be enhancements freeze and then code freeze. And it's really making sure that everybody who said they were going to deliver an enhancement to Kubernetes shows up with the code in the right state and with the docs in the right state. So enhancements owns tracking the KEP, making sure the docs show up, and making sure the PRs show up in the right order. So I think that's about it. So they gatekeep any PR after enhancements freeze going into master and to the end of that release. So also they determine what things are in, you know, is this a bug or is it a new enhancement, kick it out. So I would say roughly in the early stages, maybe 2 to 4 hours, maybe a little less. And then around enhancements freeze, you might be spending 8 to 10 hours a week. But if you have, the more shadows you have, the more you can delegate. And I've seen releases with 80 keps, and I've seen releases with 20 or 30. So it really is a factor of how many people are trying to change things. And so, yeah. But I would say that the bottom line is you need to ask that your boss is okay with you with this time commitment, because being fixed under I can only do 1 hour a week and having a higher level commitment is probably not, you might fall into trouble. We'll take one question here and I'll come over to you.
I was going to ask about the timing of the commitments, but I believe you answered that.
Okay, no worries, sorry.
There was a question in the back.
Yes, I'll come over. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christopher. I work for Pivotal on the PaaS, Pivotal Application Service Release Engineering team. And my question is regarding like the handbooks and what's the culture around them. So at Pivotal, like we take these handbooks as automation level 0. Is there like roles for people automating tasks within the handbooks, or is that like something that is even done? And then the other question is, when and are there any rules around making changes to the handbooks? And how does like that release, like that affect the cadence of the releases?
That's a really, really excellent question. And the top level answer I would give you is ideally, we would not have a release team. Right. Ideally, this entire process would be automated. That is not where we are right now. So each release, we attempt to automate away one or more of the tasks. For example, tracking, project board management, things like that, that a lot of times can be automated. Then we also, this year, throughout the cycles, automated away a role, an entire role in the release team. There used to be a test infra role on the release team, and the last person who was in charge really, really, really hated meetings. So she just developed a process, an on-call process, and a lot of automation to make sure that role would go away and she would never have to do it again.
That's very impressive.
And that is encouraged. We talk about it in our retros. We try to incorporate that as part of the process. If you're a shadow, you can actually, because you have a little bit more freedom, you're not entirely responsible for the role itself, you can make that part of your work, saying, I see what's happening here, I want to automate it away. As to your question about the handbooks, those are ever evolving. If you are on that team, go change the handbook. You just PR a change in. It's a GitHub Markdown document, and when you see something wrong or you need to correct something, You just open a pull request, you get the team and the SIG to comment on it, and that's how we update changes.
Cool, thank you.
And we do make larger policy changes to improve. So people might suggest, hey, if you labeled things like this, we'd be able to automate this, and they'd put that in the handbook, and we'd riff it out in a PR, and then you could change the process. So there's no limit to what we want to do, but I think we want to get towards that state where we automate as much as of the human toil away. And a lot of the things that have been automated are hang-up processes from Google having most of the Kubernetes test infrastructure. So slowly we've been opening that up and running that in CNCF. So that's allowed other teams to step in from other companies and own it. For example, that test infra role was a Googler role, and a Googler came in and automated so that Google is no longer needed to do that role, and it was transparent to the rest of the community. So it's great to see, Google are helping, even free themselves from a lot of the burden and toil from all the releases. So, definitely encouraged. So if you've got ideas and you see pieces in the process, you can show up and try and make them better. Any other questions?
Yeah, these are great questions. Yes?
Yes.
What happens if you're not selected for a release team? Do you have to reapply the next release, or is there like a waiting list or something?
Yeah, so you have to reapply, and as Gwyn mentioned, it's pretty tough, but we look for many different factors. So, apply, and a lot of people actually go and do other things like unnamed people in the release team. I've seen people come along and say, I really don't like the way that bug triage is done. This is an example. And somebody came in and implemented a new labeling scheme. So, but yes, you have to reapply for each one. We want to make sure that you're still interested. But typically, if you get in for a shadow, you usually want to go through and see the roles through. I served on 3 release teams. I was shadow, lead. So you can commit to that. So once you're in, typically you would want to see through at least serving as a lead, because you've already gone through all the effort to learn the role. Is there anything else I missed?
Yeah, so a couple things. We do look for lots of different we want to have many different companies represented on the release team.
Yes.
Which kind of basically means that if you work at Google, it's less likely for you to be on the release team. But that's just an outcome. That's not obviously why we choose. The other thing is, this kind of ties into why we want to encourage community leaders in the Kubernetes community to have their own onboarding processes, so that if you don't make it onto the release team, maybe you're more interested in release engineering, or you can go talk to SIG docs and say, hey, how do I get started with docs? Or it's just unfortunate that this is one of the very most clearest processes to becoming a community member right now. But we encourage you to apply again. You can up your chances by being involved in the community. If we know who you are, if we've seen your handle, if we've seen you open issues, if we've seen you show up at meetings, not just release team meetings, but SIG meetings, then we're like, oh, okay, so we know this person, they have done this, they have made these comments, we know them, and we think they would be a great addition to the team. So definitely build some community connections. That will definitely help you.
We are at time. Thank you very much for the engaging conversation, all the questions, and we hope to see you on a release within the next year.